Awesome. So we are going to be talking about Pholus today in our membership video. A really good resource if you're wanting a book about Pholus is Melanie Reinhardt's. There's very little information that I could find, and even in this book, it's not much. Okay, and so this is a topic that is still explored. Chiron, Pholus, and Nessus are the centaurs that we like to study in astrology, and so if you have a study of Chiron going on, you might want to expand that into Pholus and Nessus. So Chiron's orbit is between Saturn and Uranus, so it has that flavor. Pholus has the Saturn-Neptune flavor, and Nessus has the Saturn-Pluto flavor. So the reason I picked Pholus is because we're about to have a Saturn-Neptune conjunction that we're going to be working with throughout 2025, exact in 2026, but they get so close that it is such a huge theme that we're going to be feeling. So that Saturn-Neptune conjunction, to me, could reflect some things that you might experience as you're studying Pholus in your chart. So Melanie Reinhardt, I think her better book is her work on Chiron. But there's not information about the other ones in there. So I'm grateful to her for doing this work. Just also know that it's not a book on Pholus. It's like 5 pages on Pholus. So yeah, so it's an exploration. It's a work in progress for me in my chart. I'm still it's not the first thing I look at. You know, if you're just doing a first reading for somebody, it would be unlikely that you would draw this one out of the universe. However, it's worth knowing about because we seekers tend to attract people that have significant trauma, significant life experiences, and the centaurs will help you will show you that in somebody's life. So if you're doing a more in-depth study, a heart-to-heart with somebody, especially if they're going through a lot of really crazy sudden changes, we can't always blame Pluto. And so this gives us another spot to look at in the chart, and also a spot to study for our own personal growth and healing. So let me share my screen, and let's see my Pholus presentation. Thanks for your patience while I hit present. So what I want to look at is what is Pholus, and then look at it in the chart and through the houses, and just let this be a resource guide for you, something to stay curious about and explore. So this is the symbol for Pholus, the circle with the P, and you'll have a circle with an N if you're studying Nessus. And then Chiron has that circle with the K. So they have a similar vibe to them, that similar feeling. Pholus is a centaur asteroid. It was recently discovered. 1992 is pretty near in the grand scheme of things, and it was discovered by David Rabinowitz. What we know about Pholus right now is that it has a 91 to 92 year orbit to the sun, and so therefore it's going to spend about 7.5 years in a sign. And that's a pretty long time, you know? And so his orbit around the sun meets Saturn and goes past Neptune. And so that's where we draw that conclusion that there's both Saturnian and Neptunian influences when you're studying Pholus. So it's described as the small cause, big effect, and spiritual emergencies. And I love that. I love to know that there's a place to identify spiritual emergencies, especially as kind of this time in our culture, this time in our world. There's a lot of people that are really looking outside the realm of, I guess, look, Sharon's going to join us, normal life. There's a lot of people doing ayahuasca. There's a lot of people doing psychedelics. There's a lot of people kind of reaching beyond the normal orbit of just kind of regular life, right? And so the idea that people are having spiritual crises and spiritual emergencies, of course, isn't anything new, but isn't it interesting that we're just finding this in 1992? So again, Pholus brings sudden transformative shifts, spiritual emergencies, little small things that turn into big, huge things. And I feel like that reflects a lot of situations in my life. Now, a lot of those situations are self-inflicted and some are not. but it's worth taking personal responsibility for that. But if you're having a moment, or if you're looking back in time, or if you're trying to help somebody and have a heart to heart, that because they're continuing to have these spiritual emergencies, right? This could be a really cool place to look at. Pholus shows us where we have a lot of pent up energy, sometimes ancestral patterns that we don't even know why they're there. Like, why am I feeling weird every time I turn right? Right? Like, this could have been a grandma thing. So, my great grandmother immigrated from Russia to Texas in an icy wooden boat. And so I'm sure that there's a lot of those emotions and experiences and feelings. There were many dead people on the boat as you're going to a new country. That is a spiritual emergency. Have I made the right decision? Once you land in Texas after 3 months at sea, with all of the dead among you, and then you have the possibility of being turned around and rejected and not allowed in. And so I can't imagine those feelings, right? And so I don't think it's an overshare to also say that in that side of the family, my oldest girl cousin was in 9/11, and she too was stepping around the dead all around her colleagues, everybody on her block, right? And so it's not that she's doomed to repeat exactly what our great grandmother went through, but it's worth a look at the family tree, right? So for me, Pholus is in my fourth house of family and lineage, and that's why I'm speaking in this way. All right, so Pholus acts like a catalyst for change, really transforms things. And Melanie says that Pholus represents the lid coming off suddenly. So yay. So Pholus in myth, I don't want to spend too much time here, but basically Chiron was the first centaur, and when he had that poison arrow in his hoof, he had a choice to make, right? And so there was this long period of agony before a choice was made. But all the other centaurs were mortal, right? They just died. And so there wasn't agony and suffering and pain. It just was a sudden change that happened. You can see here I have some notes about Pholus's parents. It's in many of the resources. Yes, the nymphs from the ash tree are referenced, as well as, I don't know, do you say Silenus? I'm not that great on my mythology. I just wanted to throw this in here for those of you who are. Basically, what's going down is that Pholus opens a jug of wine, and all the centaurs can't resist it, and they tumble into the cave, right? And they're like ecstatic and driven mad, and they go in head to head. And then, right, Chiron is wounded by one of the arrows, and this is where the Chiron story comes in. The poison arrows that he was making from the venomous blood of the Hydra. And so, yeah, I mean, in the lineage that I follow, Chiron is like, screw this, I don't want to be in pain forever. I'll go ahead and be immortal. And so it represents a choice that we have to make, to stay in our suffering or to let something go, right? And so Chiron in our chart, we have seen that, right? This group that studies with me, you guys are pretty solid on your Chiron. But Pholus is something new. And so Pholus is a bit of a accident prone feeling. It's like accident and then Pandora's box. Like, whoa, how that came out of nowhere. It's that type of feeling. These are some keywords. So you could pick a couple of these to work with. But if you are working with yourself, your friends, your clients, and you hear somebody saying these words, it might clue you to be like, aha, this is a Pholus situation. So again, spiritual emergencies, Pandora's box, self-sabotage, self-destruction, very 12th house feeling. That Neptune rules the 12th house, right? Saturn rules the 10th house. So there could be self-sabotage within yourself or within your career, right? So if you're just kind of taking the cork out of the wine and causing some drama and things rush in, is it that surprising that something was going to go bad? Euphoria, immediate release. All of the centaurs have this theme of release, and I think that's another thing to really consider. Overcoming addictions because of the nod to wine, drastic changes that guide you to a spiritual mission. That's probably the best one for me. It's like spiritual emergencies. Something big changes and you got nowhere to go but spirit, right? This is when things change quickly. The visualization of opening the jug of wine and all of the centaurs rushing in. So you guys know that I keep bees, and I made a really bad mistake about a month ago, and I did something that I would not recommend anybody to do. I always use smoke. I always use my veil. I always get full protection. But I was lazy, and the bees reminded me that you can't be lazy. And I went out and I had a bunch of comb from a rescue removal that I had done in a bucket. And this time of year, which is fall for us in Texas, all the pollinators are quite hungry, and they feel like, oh my gosh, I've got to get my last fat in my pantry before we are shut down, hunkered down, and just staying still for the winter. So any little bit of food out there, every pollinator in the Tri-County area is on top of. And you don't even know they're there. But the second that you like let the lid off, hundreds of all kinds of bees, wasps, butterflies. It's like, I mean, and I've done it twice now, but the first time I just was properly covered. Well, this is like me uncorking the jug of wine and them all coming in. I uncorked the top of the bee box. Everybody came in. I got stung in the eye. I had my ankle was exposed. I had 6 stings on my ankle. And once they sting, right, there's a pheromone that's let off that makes them all come to that spot to continue to sting. It's like, hey, we know where to go now to get this beast down, right? So to me, like, that's another visualization. It's like, oh, you just let a little off the top and boom, everything changes. Now I can't see, I can't drive, I can't use, I got to have my feet up. It was a mess, and it was totally irresponsible. And that's Pholus. Okay. All right. So maybe you have some experiences like that. There's an intensification, like all of a sudden I was just gonna make some lip balm, and now I'm not. Now I'm questioning what I'm doing. So forces of radical change, awakening moments, leaving our body, like this orbit out of the body, explosive influence and escalation, exaggeration and extreme influences, spontaneous instinctive actions, life-changing events and consequences. Yeah, I had big consequences there, and so did Pholus. People died. Magical catapult to the unexpected. I thought that was a cute one too. And a small start of major, major, major events. So I want to pause so that we can find Pholus in your chart and the house where it's transiting. So we need to look at your chart. And I have Julie's permission to work with hers. And Sharon, you might be working, but we can totally look at yours too. I just want to be clear that this video will be shared with the membership. So as long as that's okay with you all, we can continue, or I can pause the recording. We're good. Okay, cool. So it's fine to continue working. What I want you to know is that it's currently in 7 Capricorn. So what house is 7 Capricorn in your chart? That's the easy low hanging fruit part. And you can either tell me or chat me. And then I will put this link. I know it's kind of a long link. Where is the chat? Okay. So if you can copy and paste that, do save it. I'll put it in our email. But what it's going to take you to is this. So this is like, whoa, overwhelming, right? So what we're looking at is an ephemeris of Pholus. We are currently in 2024. We're in November. What day is it? 14th. So we're not quite to the 15th day. So we look one back here. So November 11th. Does that part make sense? Yeah. So we're November 15th. We're going to go back one. So that's why I'm saying it's in 7 degrees of Capricorn right now in 8 minutes. And it'll still be in 7 degrees of Capricorn tomorrow. So it's slower moving. We know that it's going to stay 7 years in Capricorn in each sign, 7.5 years, because of its 91-year orbit. So now what I want to do is go back up. Do you guys know where 7 Cap is in your charts? You're muted if you're trying to talk.
Mine, I don't have any, so in 7 Capricorn, I don't have any um
Planets. You
planets, but it's in house. It looks like it's going to be in house 4.
look at you. All right. Nice. Okay, so fourth house, so it's natally in my fourth house. All right, and Julie, do you know what house?
Natally or now?
Natally, where is 7 Capricorn?
Okay, it's in my second house.
Okay, so you have Pholus transiting your second house right now, and Sharon has it transiting her fourth house. Okay, so make yourself a little note. So by transit, second house for you, fourth house for you, and we will look at that further. Second house for me too. Can that be right? Yeah. Do you have Sag rising?
I have Scorpio rising, my son's in Sag.
Okay. All right. So that's still possible that 7 Capricorn is in your second.
But yeah, okay. So 11, 5, 2024. Yeah.
Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is where was Pholus when you were born? So I need your birthday and year.
11/2/59.
Okay. So I'm just scrolling up this really long link of ephemeris. So now I'm in 1959. I'm looking for November 2nd. So on November 2nd, 1959, Pholus was in 8 degrees of Aquarius.
Third house.
Okay, perfect. So make yourself a note for that. And then Sharon, what's your birthday?
5/4/1962.
Okay.
She's a baby.
The baby. A wee baby. Okay, I found 62. What'd you say?
May, so 5/4.
Okay, perfect. So it was in 16 Aquarius. So can you locate that?
Yeah, so 16 Aquarius for me, I have in my natal,
Mhm.
I have 5th house. Do you need any that's my south node is at 13 degrees.
Yeah, so make a little note for yourself there. That's interesting.
And then my oh gosh, um what is that? The little T with the H look to it sign. Oh, it's Aquarius.
Saturn.
Saturn is in 11 degrees Aquarius. I don't know if
Okay.
that's close enough.
Yeah, it would be because we want to work with the 5-degree orb, give or take. So that's perfect. Now, because you are advanced astrologers, I'm gonna add you, I'm gonna add a nuance that's fun. So here's the way that I think about it. What degree was Pholus in? For me, it was 27 Pisces when I was born. So I go over to my fixed star list and I'm like, was there a fixed star on Pholus in the moment of my birth? And no, there's not. And this one, because we're among friends, I am really trying to clean my language up. So this has to be a joke, not real. But this one, look at this fixed star, okay? And it's all about imprisonment, murder, suicide, drowning, okay, and its name is Shiat, which cracks me up. But
My favorite curse word.
the 2-syllable one.
Yeah, yeah.
So I have purposely not brought this one up in my forecasting because the fixed stars are macabre. They are old. Like the way that they're described is ancient. And but what I want you to know in the context of this workshop, right? Neptune and Saturn are moving from Pisces to Aries next year, 2025. And so that means that it's going to cross 29 Pisces the anaretic degree, the 29th degree of decay and crisis in Pisces, spiritual realms, okay? And then it's going to move into 0 degrees of Aries. So I was much more excited to talk about fixed star curb, which is the star of the jilted lover, and talk about how let's not abandon ourselves. And so I made a intentional choice to focus on where we're going, because 0 degrees of Aries is the babyest moment of seed, hope, possibility. There's nothing less than 0 degrees of Aries, and that's where things start to blossom. But as you know, sometimes things get worse before they get better. So, right, like I'm not going to talk about an unfortunate Mars Mercury star while I'm trying to give people hope. It's not that I'm ignoring it. I mean, I am ignoring it, but it's not that I'm trying to spiritually bypass it. But when people are already in a place of tension for whatever reason, we need to look past that. We don't need to say as much like, hey, this is going to be terrible. But man, this is a serious place. So my point is, because my Pholus was at 27 degrees Pisces, the way my mind works is like, I'm curious if there was a fixed star around there. There was. I don't consider it important because it really does need to be on the degree. I haven't found in my practice that even 1 degree over makes a bit of difference. You might find something different. So I want to scroll, and I have lots of fun slides, don't worry, but I want to scroll. Remind me, I think somebody was 16 Aquarius. Okay.
I'm 8 degrees of Aquarius.
Okay.
And Sharon, yours was in Aquarius too?
Yeah, mine was 16 degrees Aquarius.
Okay, so in the context of this study, no, right? So yeah, it's like, well, it could be juicy because it's 1554. It's pretty close there. So what is all near? Retiring, active, proud, retiring, I'm just gonna say. Active.
That is just amazing, actually, because I actually went to bed praying last night what that looks like.
Well, there's the
Oh,
symbol, right?
Mhm.
Proud, watchful, kind. This is all you. Liking astronomy, the bright one. That's you, Sharon. It makes me cry like I'm crying.
yes,
That's
yes,
awesome.
yes.
And it's a fortunate one. So how cool is that to get a little love from the heavens today when it's in your prayer life? Okay, so we looked at all of our fixed star potentials, and then what did I say? It's in 7 Capricorn. Oh my gosh, sorry guys. So 7 Capricorn, other way. We don't have anything. We have some Caus Borealis and Faces. Actually, Faces is one that people talk about a lot because it's, you know, a malefic one. It's not just fortunate or unfortunate, it is very unfortunate, right? So as Pholus moves into 8 Capricorn, it's going to be conjunct fixed star Faces. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Sharon, you with me too?
No.
It's okay. This is great. So right now in the sky, Pholus is in 7 Capricorn, right? And so it's transiting your 4th house, I think you said,
Yep.
right now.
Yep.
Okay. So we know where it is in the sky. We know where it's going. It's going to go from 7 to 8. So 8 Capricorn, it's going to hit a very unfortunate fixed star. Right?
Okay.
So my forecasting mind is like, when? So I'm just walking you through how I think. So I'm going back to this list of fixed stars. We were looking at birthdays. So I'm going to take a long scroll down to 2024. November. And I see where it goes from 7 to 8. So November 20th, it will conjunct fixed star Faces, and it will be there from November 20th into December 15th. Well, what else do we have going on during that time? Mercury retrograde, Mars is going to go retrograde. They're both, you know, in shadow. Venus has been out of bounds. There's a lot that it would be easy to say, Mars retrograde. But the flavor, right? The flavor of this Mars retrograde period is also, it's worth noting that Pholus, right? Spiritual emergencies is activating a very unfortunate fixed star.
Mhm.
So, is this the right time to change holiday plans? No. You know what I mean? Like people ask like, well, when should I not travel? I mean, I'm not scared of any, oops thing. I just, if I was looking at intense days, these would be them, when Pholus moves on to that fixed star. So that's the way my mind worked. I didn't like wake up and think like, I wonder when it's going to hit that fixed star. I started going down a track so that I could start to see something in threes. You know what I mean? Okay, so back over here, we've got, do you want me to send you that link for that fixed star thing? I'll put it in the email too, but just, this is the one that I use, chat. There are many, so you can pick one that resonates, of course. All right, so now that we know where Pholus is in our charts and where it is in the sky, this part of the presentation is going to make more sense. So just to backtrack, this is a point of spiritual emergency, big change. You open the lid off the bee box and your week changed. You know what I mean? Like things got real quickly and your plans changed and you were back on your knees. Help me, 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 right? So in our group, we today that's present live, we don't have any first house things going on. But for the sake of just learning about it so that when you're helping others, right, we know that the first house is about ourself, our ego, our identity, how we see ourselves, how others see ourselves, our personality. And so these people with Pholus born in their first house, you're going to see them with sudden change, profound moments. Things happen drastically for them all the time. They're people that make a major impact. And there's also this sense of like shedding of the skin, like things are different, like I'm born again and now I'm born again and now I'm born again. And that can be frustrating, right, for people around them, because this born again, born again, born again thing, it's like, well, when does it ever stop? And I promise you they would love for it to stop, but they're not here for that. They're not here for that life, for it to stop. They're here to have awareness around it. And if you can help them bring awareness to that, like let's make it a blessing for them. Like how about they do some kind of emergency work where they're first responders? You know what I mean? Like how could we twist it for them to experience this in a way that is going to be a positive evolution, so that the rain doesn't happen to them, right, but they come outside with a umbrella ready to rock. So if it's transiting the first house, right, this is going to catalyze a big, huge, deep personal change. So for Julie and I, we could be looking back because it recently transited our first house. And we could be looking at like, okay, when was it exact for us? When did we really release something and actually let it go? So just as a reminder, right, I'm going to let Rosie in. Just as a reminder, it's this sense of really of release. So for all three of the centaurs, Chiron, Pholus, and Nessus, a big keyword is release. And so just as a little bit of a review for Julie and new info for you guys, Chiron is what we're looking at, the relationship between Saturn and Uranus. Pholus is the relationship between Saturn and Neptune. And Nessus is the relationship between Saturn and Pluto. So three very different guttural vibes, but Pholus is where the lid is knocked off. The lid comes off and we have that Pandora type feeling. So Julie and I, like, we could again look back and see what was going on specifically. And I think both of us could be like, makes sense, Okay. So if you're looking at Pholus in the second house, so if this is in your natal second house, was that the case for one of you guys? No, it's just transiting, right? Okay, so natal second house, right? We're talking about money, values, finances, material comfort, right? Things that make us happy financially and in the material world. And so if you think about Pholus and that imagery of pulling the lid off and the bees going everywhere, that is going to be this sudden emergency crisis having to do with feeling safe in our material world and feeling like finances are going to be okay. So financial turning points, whether it's big wins or big losses, are coming unexpected. And so if you have a client that is going through some big, huge financial ups and downs and they don't know which way to go, this could be, you might be looking at their transits, but you might also be looking at their Pholus placement to say like, okay, yeah, this too shall pass in 7 years, right? Because it's going to be there for a 7-year period, right? So if it's in their natal, if it's in their second house natally, this is part of their life experience. So it's okay for them to have these big, huge gains and losses. If they're not comfortable with that, right, you don't want to direct them to the stock market because they're not going to have the same level of comfort that people that have a higher tolerance of risk are going to have. So these are things, you know, if they don't know their direction, if their finances are crazy, and you're like, oh, baby, let's look at Pholus. And then they go on a personal journey with Pholus and they understand their part and they understand the spiritual value of money and all of that. What then can you tell them to do? You know, this is not, you don't have to answer. I'm not putting you on the spot, but consider these real life situations, right? So for me, I would point them to their midheaven, right? I would say, well, here's what the world needs from you right now, right? Let's just focus on your gift. Let's focus on your talent. So midheaven is an easy place to help somebody out of a crazy train. You know, especially if they're in the deep, dark places, right? You don't want to be like, here's all of your trauma lessons. You know what I mean? Like we have to give them some hope too. It's like validate hope, validate hope. Okay, so if it's transiting your second house, like it is for Julie and I think, right?
Yes.
Okay. Some small financial decision could have a major impact or shift in your values may lead to transformation in how you view money and security. So I'll speak for myself in saying that Saturn also moved into my fourth house. So fourth house, home and family, Saturn, securities and responsibilities. And what did I do? I bought a house for the first time. A small financial decision. It really was a small decision if you think about it. Buy, don't rent. Did it have a major impact? Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. For my future, for my daughter's future. So, and a shift in my values, absolutely. I moved from a very large 3 million people, very liberal city to a very small conservative rural area. That's a huge shift. You know, it's not going to come without repercussions, right? And so I find I find myself in those situations often. My human design is a 3-5, and so I have that martyr in my human design, and it's like remarkable. Like, okay, I'm a Christian astrologer. Well, the Christians hate astrology, the astrologers hate Christianity, and I'm just me, you know. And do I struggle with it? Absolutely, because I want everybody to like me. I've got 4 planets in Libra. Like, people pleasing is a big part of my life, right? I want you to be happy so that I don't feel bad. I want everybody to feel good, right? So it has been a challenge. And so I can speak to that second house transit as, yeah, a small decision, big shift, huge shift. So, Julie, you want to
I
share?
can share too
Please,
that
yeah, we want to
move
learn.
with Pholus in my second house there, transiting into my second house, and Saturn being in my fourth house. Literally, I decided to have someone look underneath my home. I needed foundation repair. And that foundation repair led to all of these other things that need fixed with it. It was like, yeah, this small decision, okay, I need to do this, just shifted into, oh, I have to like now put money into all of this stuff, but at the same time, I also knew that's what needed to happen, you know, to
Mhm.
make everything safe and secure for me. So,
I mean, I have full body chill bumps. I don't know if you can see, but isn't it wild?
yes, yeah.
Like Sharon's like, I'm praying about retirement. Her thing's on the retirement star. And then, like how wild is that? And then Julie and I are making a small decision that changes the course of our life. We lifted the B box off. Things changed. So Rosie, welcome. And okay, she's saying that hers is in the second house too. So are you saying that yours is natally in the second house or transiting the second house? And we'll get you caught up here.
It's transiting, and it's also conjunct my natal Cupido.
Oh, cool.
That sounds
Okay.
scary. Okay.
No, Cupido is good. It's one of the lovey-dovey ones. So this could be a very interesting time for you. I want you to go back and see the beginning where I have all the keywords and some other things that'll help you understand Pholus a little better. But I do want to keep moving forward. And I think that's really good for you, especially with some of your goals. Okay, so this is the symbol for Pholus, the circle with the P. Now we're in the third house. Did anybody have it natally here? So third house, learning, communication, of course, siblings, neighbors, public transportation.
Oh, natally, I have it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So now let's discuss it this way. So you'll teach us. So this is where we have something minor that has massive effects. Okay, so we think about communication, third house, we think about siblings, neighbors, cars. This could be like a casual little thing makes everything different. It's like, oh, she said purple crayon, and now we're not talking for 20 years. You know what I mean? And so especially around family secrets, especially like we said, siblings, and especially having to do with, are we family, are we blood related or not? So I don't know your story. I don't know if you want to share anything about that, but does it make sense?
Oh my gosh, so many things in there make sense for me natally. I mean, family secrets, you know, always an undercurrent going on that I always felt didn't know till much later in life why. Um, Having a family member who struggled with emotions and definitely would like maybe not speak to me for 3 years, and I'm not
Yes.
exaggerating.
Yes.
So many things like that. Yes.
Yeah. And so for me, like astrology helps me settle into my bones. So isn't it, even though it's not comfortable, isn't it kind of relieving that it wasn't a big mistake? That it wasn't
Yes.
like a big, huge, wow, we went off path there. It's like, no, we had a sacred contract to do it that way. And, I honor that in us. And I don't want to keep doing it that way. Right.
Yeah. Same.
Right. So you grow through.
Yes.
Now, if it's transiting, you might experience some of what Julie was sharing within a 7-year period. So again, Pholus, 7 years, 7.5 years in a sign, 91-year orbit. I'm just repeating for the sake of our learning purposes. But yeah, so it could just be a little small thing. And that's not to scare you to be like, oh, I got to tiptoe around people because Pholus is in my third house right now. No, that's not it. Because you have no idea when it's going to happen. Right. Like I definitely didn't plan on that day having all these bee stings. Right. Like so you can't plan it. It's part of the course of your life. But when these little crises or big crises happen, it will help you and your loved ones that you're studying. So, and Rosie says, yes, it's progressed through her ascendant. Okay. So in the fourth house, right, if we're thinking about lineage, ancestry, home, and family, that example, that kind of gruesome, trigger warning example I gave of my great grandmother coming over on a boat full of dead people and my cousins stepping on dead people walking out of 9/11, and this very traumatic occurrence that happens through the family line, right? This is what you might experience natally, not necessarily the same level of drama that I'm talking about, but this is home, roots, ancestry. You were here to be maybe a cycle breaker in your family or a cycle giver in your family. And that ain't easy, right? This is where my placement is. That ain't easy. And you know, and especially it's like very kind of black sheep feeling sometimes. Um, I had an eruption like where I guess within this week where I'm like, you know what? I don't want to be everybody's second choice for Thanksgiving ever again. I don't care what you do, but I'm not the second choice. I don't want to kick a horse that don't want to go. So these are the types of familial conversations, right? Like it's this an intensifying thing that leads up to a release. And as soon as I said that, it wasn't like I bullied people into doing Thanksgiving with me, but all of a sudden it was like, oh, they didn't know I felt that way. And I'm like, oh, really? You thought I enjoyed holidays by myself for the last 20 years? That's cute. You know what I mean? Like, and maybe they did, because in fairness, maybe I just was like trying to not have a reaction, right? Maybe I was just trying to find peace with it. But still, there's a big spiritual transformation, and it didn't have to occur in a dramatic, ugly way. So, yeah, ancestral healing is a big, strong theme for these people when it's transiting your fourth house. Changes in the family are big. Maybe you're having a blended family experience that's shocking and not so much fun to you. Maybe you're having something that you'll never know about. Like we talked about, like, why am I terrified of whatever? I use the bad example of turning right. Why am I weird about this? You might not ever know that great 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 grandma had like tripped over the garden hose and lost a baby, right? Like you might not never know some of those things. So family secrets, they could emerge for healing, but they might not. And that's where our faith comes in. That's where we say, we just surrender and give it over and say, I don't know why I'm feeling this, but I can't because you told me not to worry. You know? So, all right. So the fifth house is natal. So natally, right? We think about creativity and children, we think about pleasure. And we think about these in terms of romance too, creative projects that just change, right? And that could be for the better. So if you have some creative idea that just sparks and takes off like wildfire, that could be a Pholus natal thing. Think about, like, I don't know where his Pholus is, but for example, Callie's dad works for Taylor Sheridan. Taylor Sheridan wrote all of the Yellowstone, all of the 1923, all of the kind of modern westerns. And he used to come into our hair salon, this guy. He's just a guy. He's just a guy, normal dude. Had an idea, changed everything, right? I want that Pholus moment. And so, yes, so it could reveal hidden talents. Did he even know he was going to be a gifted screenwriter? Did he even know that he was going to be passionate and prolific in that area? So yes, sudden creative inspiration if it is transiting, and it can be uncomfortable shifts related to children, right? So there you go. Pholus in the sixth house, natally, work and health, right? Our day-to-day routines. And so these people, does anybody have it natally in the sixth? If I am your fifth, you were fourth?
My natal was fifth, fifth, I believe. My transit was fourth, I believe.
Okay,
I think.
so hopefully you have your Taylor Sheridan moment. No, we got to look up his chart. Do you have anything to share about that one?
No, I don't. I'm sitting here trying to think, and then it had me started questioning whether or not I got it right, but I'll have to go
Yeah.
back and think about it. Yeah.
Okay, let's look. I'm not going to be able to stand it. Okay, I'm going to astro.com, and I have read for you, so I keep you in my Astro Gold. I don't know if I have you in this one. So what I want to do, I actually, I
right
do
there.
know.
It was right there.
I know, I just am
Oh.
like, oh my gosh, this is so uncomfortable. Let me just, for confidentiality, I see you right there. I've got you pulled. I'm just trying to get a chart drawing. Okay, let me share again. Okay, so tell me again the degree where it was when you were born.
14 degree Virgo. Oh, you mean the Pholus?
Uh-huh.
It was when I was born, 16 Aquarius.
Okay. All right, so we're right with the fifth house. And then we said 7 Capricorn, so you're right with the fourth house. So you're right with how you did it.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Oh my gosh, don't be. This is the learning place. This is where I mean, if you don't, yeah, do not be sorry. Okay, so
Thank you.
sixth house, we've got work and health. And this is a big theme of 2025 because of the nodes shifting. And so we feel like we want to, with Pholus here, you could look at like my health stuff for an example. Like everything's fine until it's not, and then it's really not, you know? Everything's going along good at work until somebody says something and all of a sudden it's not. So think about the mythic story of Pholus and how that could apply in the house and sign theme. So we're only really talking about houses. You could add another layer if you were looking at sign themes too. But you can see how effective it is just with the house, you know? So okay. So karmic health patterns, ancestral health patterns that emerge unexpectedly. And then if it's transiting, right, that's a little bit, I don't want to say easier, but you know, it's just a short period of time, like 7 years out of your life. It doesn't mean it happens the whole 7 years. It means within that context of that little time, you might have a wake up call when it comes to your health or your job. So if it's your job that you hate or your client's job that they hate, we're going to point them to the midheaven. Here's your purpose. We're going to point them to the north node. Here's your destiny, right? We're going to point them to something that's going to help them. And if it's their health, we're going to point them to the great medical astrologers of our time and say that we're not doctors, right? We'll say we can acknowledge it and then point them in the right direction. All right, so if it's a 7th house Pholus that's happening natally, it's similar to what we talked about with the 3rd house. There can just be one small thing that sets off a chain of events that is just totally transformative. So whether, you know, good news, bad news, who knows? It could be she said purple crayon and we got a divorce and you're like, what? It could be she said purple crayon and she proposed to me in a hot air balloon. What? You know, like it's these, like okay, confession. Do you guys watch really bad TV sometimes? Because I was watching The Conners, which is the second show after Roseanne. And it's like such just an easy background thing while I'm doing something and it's nostalgic. It reminds me of like the 80s period when I was growing up and all of that. And what was I? Oh, so Darlene, the character, is jumping around on the roof, and her boyfriend is who they've been in and out. They've in and out. We hate each other. We love each other. And anyway, she's jumping on the roof, kind of yelling at him, like, "I'm not paying for that because my roof is fine." She falls through the roof, right? And then Ben, the boyfriend, comes down and is like, "Oh, Darlene," and basically asks her to marry him. That's a Pholus 7th house moment, you know? She falls through the roof and they get married. It's weird, right? So pop culture can help you understand this just like your own personal experiences, and it'll help you teach other people too. So that's one perhaps bad example. And then if by transit, the same thing you can expect. Just something happens, it triggers unexpected events that changes your significant relationships. So 8th house, right? Shared resources, deepest human bonds, sex, death, and taxes, intimacy, deep pockets, financial inheritances, trauma, psychic work, right? The things that make us sensitive. Yeah. So if you have Pholus in your 8th house natally, you're going to notice some of these entanglements. And so part of your whole life's work is to become self-sufficient, self-supporting in what you're doing. You don't have to pull from the family oil money. You don't have to marry rich. You don't have to handcuff yourself to a job, right? Like there's something really deep that's hurtful that you feel like you're experiencing it at a more acute level than the rest of the world, right? And so similarly, right, if it's by transit, these changes in shared resources, changes in intimacy, uncover deep stuff, right? So changes in intimacy can be a big deal when it's a 7-year period. Changes in resources can be a big deal, right? That a 7-year period, right? We're talking about Saturn and Neptune with Pholus. That's where the orbit is. So 9th house stuff, we've got belief systems, expansion, philosophy, religion, curiosity, travel, university level thinking, overseas, foreign languages, things like this. So if Pholus is in your 9th house, right, you are going to be somebody that really does need to understand the whole world, not just your little microcosm. This is somebody that maybe they are on a mission trip. Maybe they are backpacking across Europe. Maybe they are really deeply moved by a particular culture because they feel like they've lived there before. Y'all remember my friend Leisha, my human design friend? I mean, she's my friend, but she does human design. We were both randomly working at Lollapalooza in Chicago one year. Her mother-in-law does sign language for the musicians, for the crowds. And so she was doing that. I was managing the food court. We ran into each other and we had extra time. So we went to the Chicago Museum of blah, blah, blah. And we walked in and it was like, it was such a trippy feeling. It's like, I think I made that. I think I made that rug. It was such a weird feeling of having gone back in time and seen something from the past of a culture that you may have been involved in. So this is a very 9th house, otherworldly, other culture-y experience that I could bring up as a story for this one. And maybe I missed the mark. Maybe somebody watching with 9th house natal Pholus could help. So yeah. So maybe you are in college and something drastic happens. It's a normal day, right? And then something drastic happens. I think about some of the college shootings. I think about some of the just trauma that can happen when you're in college for the first time. I say college because 9th house higher education, I realize that's not everybody's plan. Travel, this isn't just going down the street. This isn't a 3-hour drive. This is something a little further away. This can also be something that happens through your temple, through your church, through your spiritual system. You know, this could be when your yoga teacher starts hitting on everybody and now you can't do yoga anymore. And it was like the thing that was making you feel good. So it can be a small thing. It could be a rumor. It could not even be true. And it could still ruin it for you, right? Or inspire you to want to fix it. Do these examples kind of help?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. 10th house, sudden unexpected changes in your career or your public image. Yeah. So all of that we're talking about right now, but within your career. This is the black sheep feeling. This is like my whole family, like literally my whole family is pharmacists and I'm doing astrology. You know what I mean? So the idea here is that you are not going to be best, like the next person in the family lineage of the thing. My great granddad and his sons all had general stores throughout Texas. And my dad's family said, we don't want to do that. My dad's not just my dad's family, my dad, his brother, his sister, that whole part of the family tree were like, we don't want that passed down to us. And I'm like, I would love nothing more than to have a family store with nostalgia and recipes and history passed down to me. So they had to break that cycle, right? For some reason. So They got to forge their own path, these people. And so you just tell them you were born under a different star. Don't worry about it. You're doing it right. You don't have to do it the same way that your family did. You weren't born to do that. So give yourself some grace. What is it that you do want to do? If you had permission, if you had approval, if mommy and daddy said, "Atta girl," every time, what would it be? You know, what would you do? So 10th house transiting, the same thing would be happening just at that acute level. So you kind of wonder, like, where is, like, don't you want to immediately go look up the candidates and see where's Pholus and all of their things? Like, because something big is going down. All right, in the 11th house, this is our house of community, friends, goals, wishes, hopes, dreams. And so these people might have a lot of changes within their friend group, or something dramatic, tragic, traumatic, interesting, crazy happens in their friend groups over time, right? So spiritual emergencies is our Pholus thing. You know, like, what's a good example of this one? This could be that you grew up with some friends, and later in life they become millionaires and they buy you a boat and get you out of debt, right? There's some drastic thing that happens, that just because you were friends, you know, just because by association. It could be that you're in the wrong place, the wrong time, and you go to jail for the rest of your life because you're guilty because you're hanging out with the wrong people. I don't know, you know, but it's tragic and it's drastic and it's a spiritual emergency. And we would be in a spiritual emergency if somebody bought me a yacht, because we would be all having a good time. We would be just partying, right? We would just really be a big change of pace. So this is a friend group, or a friend, or somebody that is, you know, just you have that deep involvement with your group, with your, like my B group, like my astrology group, like whatever. Somebody in there has a change of pace and it changes the trajectory of your life. Right? Okay. And then 12th house, of course. So 8th and 12th are kind of our most psychic, subconscious trauma, drama, self-sabotage, prison redemption stories. And so 12th house, I would think that somebody with Pholus there would be somebody that would have a really deep life, you know, with lots of moments to have introspection and lots of moments to really question things. Lots of moments to break free of the mold. I would think this person would be visionary, revolutionary, especially in the spiritual arts, right? This could be kind of guru, prophetic dreams, somebody that speaks from a pulpit, somebody that is like the Edgar Cayce's, like the sleeping prophet type thing. Something like this could happen. Maybe they get into dream work. I don't know. But that's what I'm sensing for this. And yeah, so these are deep subconscious spiritual revelations, hidden stuff, deep, juicy stuff for profound inner transformation, profound healing, profound retreat work. Yeah, so some takeaways. Pholus is stuff where small things lead to big, huge change. In the movie Aladdin, there's okay, so there's this moment where he gets the genie out of the bottle, and the genie goes, "Big cosmic powers, itty bitty living space," right? And so I think of that when I think about Pholus too, where it's like, you just let something big cosmic powers out of just rubbing the lamp, like you don't even know what you're doing, and all of a sudden there's a genie. I'm just gonna make some lip balm, and all of a sudden bees are all over me. Pholus in mythology, I'm just gonna take the cork off this wine, and all the pours Russian, and there's mass death, right? So in the natal chart, it shows where they're likely occurred over and over and over, and we want to help people move through that. With awareness, it changes. The observer affects the experiment. We know that from quantum physics. When transiting Pholus is giving a catalyst, it's helping us release, 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 which I really don't like that word because it's to lease again. So, but that is like the theme key. So, you know, just take the meaning, not the actual word. Don't use the word release in your stuff, because it's like, I'm signing up to experience this again in my mind. So, so yeah, and then understanding its influence in each house can help us navigate these moments when sudden change and transformation occurs. In my life group, we have a lot of people experiencing a lot of really tragic things, and I constantly wonder, gosh, I wish they were open to an astrology reading. We had somebody whose son got hit by a car a couple of weeks ago, and he's 6, and he's in a hospital, and he's smiling this week. And so they're giving him a 6-month period to figure out how his healing will be. Will he be okay, or will he be at this level of impairment? We have people that are traveling to Poland, and they're on fire to help reignite marriages there, right? They have one conversation and now everybody's off in Poland. So you start to notice it. And so again, I wanted to bring Pholus to our attention because of its unique cycle, its unique orbit between Saturn and Pisces. I mean, Saturn and Neptune, and we have the Saturn-Neptune conjunction coming up. So I thought this would be a cool one to study. So there are my resources. Boring. That's it. So maybe you want that screenshot, maybe you want to watch it back from the beginning, but this was just a micro study on Pholus. And I loved hearing your interpretations because it helps me learn. This is what like an astrology jam is good for. So I want to be sensitive to your times. And did you learn stuff? Was it exciting? Do you have questions or ideas that you want to share? No?
I always love learning from you. It's just always so amazing. I am not as educated or studied like the other two with this today, but I still, regardless of the level I am, I just absolutely love just learning a little bit more every time. Definitely.
Well, let's give you some credit. You found Pholus in your natal chart. Do you know how many people can do that? And then you found it where it's transiting. That's a big deal. And it's a word you've never heard of. You know what I mean? And you're the one that went to sleep last night and had the synchronicity moment here today.
Well, this is
So that's
true.
cool. So and there's no, like I had a chat going on with my buddies, Celeste and Sarah, and they were sharing some aspect that makes my brain hurt. It was like, well, the tri-quadruple bipartile of dead baby. And I was like, am I even an astrologer? And they were like, you're a really, really good astrologer. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I'm constantly humbled. We will never have all there is to know, right? All we have is our life to study, and then the people in front of us that we can help. And we just have to discern when it's helpful and when it's not, right?
I will say that when you talked about the retirement thing, it's like, oh my gosh. Yeah. It was a validating moment.
Yeah.
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 Very
Catalyst for change.
Yeah.
Into the unknown, Neptune, Saturn and Neptune, all the contrast. You can think about that. Work, Saturn, Neptune, the unknown. Saturn, responsibility, maturity, duty. I have purpose. I have meaning because I have work. Neptune, none of that matters anymore. So who am I now? Right? So maybe that's your quest right now, is who am I now? Who am I without my job? Who am I without XYZ that represents Saturn in your life? These responsibilities, these duties. And then knowing your natal was in the 5th house, right? So knowing that that you have some of that kind of more karmic side would be either significant changes with children or significant changes with creativity. Like maybe, who knows what Sharon's gonna do? Like maybe you're about to have your Taylor Sheridan moment. We have no idea how it's about to be like crazy and interesting, right?
So I do have a question about that. So it could be one blip in time within a 7-year period
For the transiting.
for the transiting. Okay. So, but that transiting moves throughout the 7 years. So then would I want to look at each transit each time it's moving? Because I think you said it was from November, what, 11th or November 8th through December 15th, and then it moves into, or no, that's when it does move into the 8th.
Yes, yeah.
So then I would want to look at this all again in that period.
Well, you would know that we would know that Pholus is in Capricorn for about a 7-year period. And because your crazy friend Tiffany doesn't use whole house, it makes it a little bit more complex. So if you're just using whole house, it's going to be, you know, in these these two houses for a 7-year period. But I don't. So I need to actually know where one Capricorn is, which could be in between one houses, you know, it could be in between somewhere. It's not going to be perfect.
Okay.
And then I need to know where 29 Capricorn stops. And I'll know that during this 7-year period, this is where Pholus is going to straddle my chart. So it could
Okay,
straddle it.
so I asked that because the 16-degree Aquarius in the natal
Is at the tippy end of your
it's
fifth house?
yeah, so it's at my second house starts at 17 degrees, I believe. But
Okay.
that's my natal, right? So I'd really want to watch the transit.
Well, what you want to think about, let's pull Sharon's chart up. And if you guys want to chime in and practice, you can. I'm just pulling it up in the background. So what you're struggling with right now is how to work with a transit. Sharon, chart. Okay, let me share again. So as you are studying the planets and the transits, you need to know how long they're going to stay in a sign. And so, right, like for Pluto, it takes 248 years to get back around, right? For Uranus, it takes 84 years to get back around. For the moon, right, it's going really, really fast. It's changing signs every couple of days. For the sun, it's going to be changing signs every month, right? Our birthdays. And so Mercury, all of the inner planets are going to travel faster. So they're going to move through the signs a lot faster than the outer planets. And so Pholus is not a planet. It's a centaur, asteroid. It's a centaur. And I don't know if they consider it a planet or not, is my hang up. But regardless, it's a planetary body that we're looking at. And so it's in Capricorn right now. So when it moved into Capricorn, it was like midway in your 4th house. Do you see my cursor?
Yep.
Okay. So when it moved into Capricorn, here's Pholus in the sky and it's galloping through your 4th house. And then at some point, whatever degree that is, it's going to gallop into the 5th house. So
That's 16th degree. Yep.
Does Astro tell us what degree this is?
It's 16th. I can tell you that. 16th
Okay.
degree when it moves.
Okay, so so to kind of carry on with that, how guys would we find when it how would we know when it moves from her 4th to 5th house?
The chart you have.
Mm-hmm.
You check the degree to see which house it's in. Is
Yeah,
that
and
what
just refer back to the chart and see when it moves by degree and the dates on it.
Exactly. So where is that? Nope. Yes. Okay. So we want to know 16 Aquarius. And you know why, Sharon? Because we want to know because that's where your 4th and 5th house is.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm sorry, I'm having a scroll issue here. We want to go to, I know that's impossible to watch on somebody else's screen. So in 2024, blah, I'm going to make us all seasick. Why were we talking about Aquarius? Did I lose my mind? We want to know 17 Capricorn.
Yes. Well, it's natally in her Aquarius, I think.
Okay. So hopefully I didn't screw us up too much, but it changes. So when it's in 17 Capricorn, now I'm just scrolling because I'm like 12, 11, 12. There's some retrograde motion. All right, something does definitely not seem right.
You were in 2029.
I know, but I'm still in 16 Capricorn.
Oh.
So I guess you ain't got to worry about it for a while.
Okay.
I guess right, because it's in a 7-year period, so it's further than we have data for. So you could imagine if it's right, if you could imagine it's gonna be
Okay.
right here. Did we
So,
retrograde? No.
so let me ask the question. I'm sorry if it's it's
Mm-mm.
101. So right now it is an 8-degree. Is that correct?
It's in 7 right now.
7, and it's going to move into 8.
Mhm.
And because it moves so slow, it's likely not going to move through these houses very fast at all.
Right, it's going to stay in one sign for 7 whole years.
Okay.
Yeah, and so for you, it's just going to straddle houses because of how I look at that.
Okay. Gotcha.
Because I'm using right Placidus.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a whole house astrologer, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, well, I follow you, so.
So you're stuck with me, babes.
No, I like it. I want to stay with that because I understand that I like this better. I feel it's more accurate, but.
That's how I feel as well. You know, the more we learn, maybe we change our minds, but for now, that's just in my practice what feels good. So, you know, we were talking about how interesting it is because it's in 7 right now. It's going to move to 8 that is on top of that fixed star facies, right? That's what
Mhm.
I think that's where you were talking about the 8. So that fixed star is kind of one of the challenges, right? So now, if you had a planet here, that might be more interesting to talk about, you know? And you do here. So back when you were a baby and Pholus was moving through and it was conjunct your Saturn when you were born, you know, we could go back in time and be like, oh, did your grandmother or grandfather take care of you? Or was there, you know what I mean? Like that sign would represent that. We hit a nerve.
Yeah, so yeah, when I was born, I believe we were living with my grandmother. And then in my teens, my grandmother came and shared my room with me. But I was in high school at that time. So it was kind of, yeah.
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 Right. And so in high school, if you were in high school, that would have, you know, 18 would be a nodal cycle. So a karmic cycle with that particular grandmother would have completed. Yeah. I love this so much.
I do too.
Ah, so good. All right, let's see. How do I stop? Okay. My lunch was delivered and I got to go rescue some bees. So I'm gonna go and I love you guys and thanks for showing up live and okay, next month I was gonna really get out of my comfort zone and do this book. It's called Christian Astrology, but they have gone through Jesus's real birthday and it's fascinating. So I was just gonna do like a bonus content on that because I don't want to exclude anybody in the membership that may not want to look at that content. But if you getting around the holidays, if you haven't checked that book out yet, it's especially as a study of astrology, you cannot believe the astrological events that led up to March of that time period. It's a
What's
really
the
good
name of that? What's the name of the book?
it's
Is
Christian,
it?
it's Christian astrology. It's one actually I
Oh.
texted you this summer, I think.
Oh, okay, because I got one. I got that book. I thought it was yeah, it's a little blue book. Just
Yeah,
okay, yep, I
it
got it.
looks like a little blue book, and then every page you're like, oh, like I had to digest it a lot, and so I thought that would be a fun thing to do. But
I think
Yeah.
so.
I think so.
yeah.
Yes.
I think so too.
Okay, guys, we'll all send out the
All
replay
right.
and have a great weekend.
Thanks, you
Thank
too.
you.
Right.
Bye.
Happy full moon, guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
Oh,
Right.
yes,
Yeah.
thanks, you too.